Ian Watkins, who was murdered inside of HMP Wakefield just over a week ago. Now, I'm going to be telling you a little bit about what was happening with him inside of HMP Wakefield just before his murder, because I have had some info from people inside, well, not people, someone that works inside of Wakefield and an inmate that was in the segregation unit down in HMP Wakefield, also known as Monster Mansion. Now, everyone who's been following the channel will see the videos that I've done on this absolute bacon, this absolute piece of you know what. Got to be careful with your words these days on YouTube because they flag it up. But Ian Watkins, his life was ended inside of HMP Wakefield. His jugular was cut and he bled out within minutes, and he was dead before the emergency services could get to him. He was dead when the screws were putting towels around his neck trying to stem the blood flow. Obviously, a cut that deep into the jugular, you're not going to stem that and you're not going to come back from that. So Ian Watkins is no more. But I've been speaking to a friend inside of prison. Obviously, I still speak to some of the lads inside of prison, keep us updated on things, on what's going on. And he told us a story about when Ian Watkins was caught with a mobile phone inside of HMP Wakefield. At the time, my friend was in the segregation units in Wakefield. He'd been in the segregation blocks or segregation units for a number of years, my friend. And you might be saying, well, why was he in Wakefield segregation? And what happens is when you put in long-term segregation, they don't just keep you in one block. That's referred to as the block inside of prison. They don't just keep the lads or lasses, they don't just keep the lads inside of one block in the high security prisons. If you're in long-term segregation, they'll transfer you between the 5 high security prisons, which is HMP Franklin, Wakefield, Whitemore, Long Lawton and Full Sutton. So my friend was down in the block, I think he said it was around about 2018, 2019, in the segregation unit. And Ian Watkins had been caught with a mobile phone, believe it or not. Because my friend was telling us, obviously, of speaking with other lads down the block down there who were from other segs as well. And at the time, in HMP Wakefield, it was 90-10, which meant 90% were Bacon's S-offenders and 10% were normal, what you class as normal criminals, or the ones that are on general population. But again, sometimes you'll get moved without even having a say. The screws will come to your pad one day, say, pack your stuff, you're off. You maybe go from, just say, Franklin, and they'll transfer you down to HMP Wakefield. You haven't got a say on where you're going or which prison you're going to. The screws can just come at any given time, transfer you out, and some of the lads were ending up in Wakefield. And obviously in Wakefield, there's no protection. So the 10% of the normal lads were getting put down there and getting mixed in with all these Bacons. And the majority of the time, this 10% were obviously doing the Bacons in. And that's obviously what's happened with one of the prisoners who has done Ian Watkins. One of them was in for what you would class as a normal offence, even though murder's not normal. But what I'm trying to say is he's not a Bacon. One of them was a Bacon, the other one wasn't. And he was the one, obviously, who's been involved in the murder of Ian Watkins. So the 10%, obviously, sometimes if they attack the Bacons, they end up down the block. And he was talking with my friend. And Watkins had been put down the block, like I've just said a couple of times, and I'm repeating myself. He was put down the block for having a mobile phone. So my friend's friend, who we'd met down the block, who we knew from the other prisons, decided to shit him up one day. So there is other ways and means to get a hold of prisoners without actually getting them out of the cell. When the prisoners down the segregation unit are let out to go for a shower, this said prisoner has went out with a Radox bottle full of shit and piss. And what they used to do was, obviously, when they were going to shit somebody up, the Radox bottle would be full of shit and piss, and it would be left for a week, so you can imagine the stench from it. Obviously, it's wrapped up, so you can't smell it until it's unwrapped. So Watkins is in his pad. The lads walk past to go for his shower, open the Radox bottle, squirt it through the gaps in the door, so it's squirting through the doors, all sides, all around his door. All the lads down the block were gagging because the stench was that bad. You could smell it behind your door in all the other pads, up and down the segregation unit. And Watkins, his door got opened up a number of hours later on, obviously to check on him and to clean him up. Believe it or not, they've opened the door. He was that out of his head, he didn't even know what had happened. He couldn't smell it. Everybody else is gagging, so it sort of backfired. They've done it to get at him, shit him up, and he's been that out of his nut, he's never even realised. Been full of the spice, off his absolute trolley, and didn't even know that it had happened. So, like I say, it sort of backfired. The rest of the lads are gagging. And he was telling us that was the sort of pull that he actually had inside of HMP Wakefield, because he had that much money on the outside, and money talks, but a lot of people put money before morals. So whoever was working down the block or whatever, or he's took it down with him. Obviously they've got the phone. He's obviously got a fucking his arse cheeks filled full of spice or whatever. So when he's down the block, he's just sitting smoking, getting off his nut all day long, not even knowing he's in the block, because he had that much money, he could buy whatever he wanted. And like I say, there was 10% normal prisoners, and out of them 10%, the ones that were getting stuff in, I mean, even Bacon's get stuff in on visits. So out of that 10%, obviously someone was supplying them because they were getting that much money out of him. Obviously, they were probably charging him 10 times the amount, and he wasn't bothered about paying it because he had the money to do it. And it did say, I seen an article over the weekend, that one of his fangirls that used to go and visit him, she's remained anonymous, but she's obviously went to the papers. Can't remember which one I've seen it in, but there was an article saying that she's remained anonymous for obvious reasons. She'll not want to be known as someone that was going to visit that absolute monster. And she said when she turned up on a visit to go and see him, he looked nothing like he looked like on the pictures. He was overweight and he had black teeth. And that was the description that she'd said. And like I've said, believe it or not, he had dozens, hundreds of fangirls that were still visiting him, sending him pictures, sending him letters. Can you believe that? Just goes to show what sort of messed up people there is who still want to be in touch with someone like that. But in one of the letters, she also said that he hated weekends because he felt more vulnerable. Obviously, weekends is no work, so everybody's opened up at the same time. Obviously, during the week when the prisoners have got to go to work, there's not as many people out on association, or you don't get as much time out of your cell, obviously, if you're not working. So he felt more vulnerable on weekends, and that was when he was more prone to attacks. And there has been more attacks that has been listed in the press. Obviously, a few of them where he's been battered, punched, whatever. It hasn't made the national or the headlines, and it hasn't made the newspapers. So a lot of them have went unnoted. But his life was a living hell when he wasn't out of his trolley. Obviously, that was why he was getting out of his trolley all the time, even though he was doing that, apparently, when he was in the band, getting off his nut all the time. Went to prison, and he was getting off his nut inside the prison. He was even on the phone, because it was a recorded message, when he first went in, bragging about what he was actually in for, and thinking that the term that he used was, it's mega lols. Laugh out loud, thinking it's funny. So that absolute creature, that monster, got exactly what he deserved. And inside of HMP Wakefield now, they've now got it where it's 60. I think my friend, he had it up on his laptop, because in the prisons now, you get laptops in certain prisons. They've got phones in the cells and they've got laptops. But the laptops aren't fit to go on the internet or anything like that. It's to make online applications, not online applications as such, applications for visits, applications for clothing or whatever inside a prison. It's for the prisoners, to make it easier for them, to make it easier for the screws. They do the online, they do the applications on their laptop, which then gets sent through to the office, and the applications all get done like that. And it's also to give them prison news. They can read prison newspapers. They do get the odd few movies they can watch on the laptops as well. Just giving you a bit of info about these laptops, because you'd be thinking about how to get laptops. But it's also to do legal work, different things like that. And they get a lot of information about what is actually going on inside the prisons. And he read it out to us the other night about Wakefield Prison is now 60-40, 60% Bacons, ex-offenders, 40% normal criminals, we'll call them. And they mix them in. There's not like one house block or one wing where it's just full of like the non-Bacons. They're the ones of normal criminal element. They're all just mixed in. So obviously the violence is on the increase, which is good to hear about, because it's all against the Bacons. And the violence is actually increased by a staggering 65%, I think he said it was. 65% an increase of violence inside of Wakefield. And everyone who's got the laptops, or all the lads inside the prison and the lasses who get the prison news on the laptops, what's going on inside the prisons, this is like the headlines for them now. Wakefield Prison, all the ex-offenders are feeling vulnerable, so they should. They're feeling vulnerable to attack, because 65% increase in violence, and they're all getting attacked on a daily basis. Some of them more severe than others, as we well know, with this beast that I'm talking about now. So yes, I thought I'll bring you them facts as well. It used to be 90-10, it's now 60-40. The Bacons are feeling vulnerable, because they're called VPs inside the prison as well, vulnerable prisoner, which I find highly distasteful and disrespectful, because they're anything but vulnerable when they're in society, preying on the weak and the youngsters, the little ones. And then they go to prison and they get classed as vulnerable. But they're classed as vulnerable prisoner because they're vulnerable to attack from the other prisoners. And that's exactly how they are feeling at the moment, which we can all take a little bit of jolly knowing that these Bacons are not having a good time, because the Bacons, believe it or not, the ones in Monster Mansion, as the title says, Monster Mansion, are the worst of the worst. There's ones in there like Watkins, and even worse than Watkins, that you don't hear about. The prison is full of them. I think there's nearly 1,000, there's hundreds of them inside that prison that have done horrendous deeds to little ones, things that are unimaginable. Yeah, so I just thought I would bring that to your attention. People, give you some facts about what's going on inside Monster Mansion, let you know that these beasties are feeling vulnerable. I'm going to leave that one there for now, people. Hopefully you are still enjoying the content. And if you are, remember to comment, like, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell, because I've got a few belters coming up this week. If we can say belters, but belters as in such as I know you lot like to hear them. I should be getting a couple of videos on a day, to be honest, because there is a lot to talk about. But we'll see in the coming days if we can get some 2 a day. Let us know in the comment section if you want to see more videos, or if you just want to keep it at the daily video, one a day. Anyways, take care, people. Enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe.